Manaki.
I just want to shake some sense into you kids.
Never gets
Hello
old.
and welcome everyone to Pissed Off Gen-XERS.
Yes.
Only it's the season of the witch, so.
Yes, and you know what? There's a lot of fucked up shit happening in this world, and we don't really care to talk about it.
No.
Yeah.
I have no opinion on a lot of it, and the ones that I do are like, basically, I'm sick of it and I don't care.
I don't care, and you can't make me.
Exactly.
I would
I
much
mean-
rather celebrate the fact that it is the time of Halloween
Yes.
and screw everything else overseas.
Yeah, because this shit, I'm looking around for a bicentennial celebration. I mean, the more shit changes, the more it stays the same.
Oh,
my
meaning it
God.
feels like it's the 70s?
Yeah.
I'm gonna get you, Chris.
Whoop.
Yeah, I'm
Better watch
live.
out, Chris.
No, I'm not muted. The entire chat can hear me talking to you right now as you try to mess with me.
Yes, Chris. She knows
Yeah,
where you sleep.
Yeah.
She knows where you sleep, and she's got quiet shoes.
Yeah.
his face is bright
she'll
red.
love
he's
you.
Giving,
She'll love you
Giving
forever and ever
Get out of
and
here.
ever.
I'm gonna make Sam go in your room. I know you don't like Sam.
Look,
Oh, Sam.
man. Your mom partied when she was younger, so she knows how to really screw with someone when they're asleep, like write dick on their forehead.
I actually did that to somebody. I was so
So
proud of
bye.
myself. I
My
drew
wa-
dick and pentagrams on their face.
My wife says I should tell you guys about a recurring nightmare I have to this day.
Okay, let me get into what we're doing today first. Everyone loved last episode so damn much, and I mean, I think it was great hearing Raltz just tell all those old stories.
Yeah.
He's got more, and why don't we share them? And for those of you who asked, yes, I am posting them as shorts called True Tales of Horror
Yes.
with Raltz Bloodthorn.
Yes.
No, I have a recurring nightmare. I was there for a long time. Normally, a unmarried soldier is only in Europe for 2 years. 3 years if you're married. I was there for 5. So not by choice either. I was put under what was called stop loss. Peacetime stop loss to boot, because I was considered mission essential. So, that's why if you knocked on my door, you got to see the crank, because I didn't care. I stopped caring. But anyway, this affected me to the point where I have a recurring nightmare. And this nightmare fucks with me so bad. I dream that I wake up on the floor of my room, passed out drunk, as was the style at the time, with my roommate going, "Hey, dude, you all right? Man, I thought you were going to die of alcohol poisoning." And me going, "What?" "Yeah, you were mumbling all kinds of crazy shit. World Trade Center, wife and kids. Hey, we got to make it to formation, man. You better take a shower." And I'll dream that I go about my day, and I'm 18, 19 again. And all of this was a fucking dream. And I'm still in hell. I hate that fucking dream. I will wake up and the first thing I do is reach over and touch her. And if she can tell I'm having that dream, she will wake me up, because it is so fucking awful, because that means the last 30 years of my life was nothing but a dream when I was passed out on the floor. That dream fucks with me. And it might not sound like that big of a nightmare to some of you.
No,
But,
that's terrifying.
No, that's scary.
And it fucks with me.
Kind of thinking of, was it All You Need Is Kill with that?
Never heard of that.
Oh, you got to
Great
read that,
book.
Raltz. That is a fantastic book.
It's a Japanese light novel that borrows heavily from Starship Troopers,
Mhm.
but definitely is its own thing. And it is essentially Earth is being invaded by an alien race, but it turns out they're just terraforming the planet. That's what we're fighting, is they're terraforming machines.
Ah.
And they're using mecha power armor to fight back. And It's about one soldier who gets caught in kind of a Groundhog Day style time loop.
Oh, geez. I mean, I used to also spend a lot of time off post. I had a work site. It was a forward storage transportation site, FSTS, and mine was 125 supermax bunkers, 3 times over over their explosive weight limits each. Holy fuck! I mean, my job gave me the shakes. You know, I still remember seeing Reagan on the news going, "There are no nuclear weapons in Western Europe," and all of us busting up laughing because, well, that's a fucking lie. And you know, but I was there for so long. You know, normally company commanders are supposed to last a year. We had one guy last longer than a year, and that's only because we got deployed to Desert Storm. But he was uniquely trained and grew up and had the background to handle a bunch of drunken retards because he was from that floating trash isle Trinidad. And he just basically treated us all like we were all functionally retarded, and it worked for him. He never got mad. He never got upset. He just figured, you know, with as much radiation as chemical weapon exposures we were sucking up, we were bound to be strange. So,
Wait, is this the same guy that when you guys were out shooting and you thought you were shooting at something, you could see the guy and the night vision glasses that actually came out to see if it was true and saw everything that you were seeing?
yeah, he took that shit
Okay.
in stride because of that. Yeah, he used to tell us about the ghostly spitting monkey, the ghostly masturbating monkey that would hide underneath. It would hide under his grandma's window and masturbate and stare at her.
Oh
And
God.
they'd go out to chase it with shovels, but they'd see the footprints of the monkey, but never saw the monkey. I don't know if he was yanking our chain. I mean, I don't know if Trinidad is like some super civilized nation full of gleaming chrome cities, or if he really was born in a fucking hut with a grass roof. I don't know. He's former enlisted. He was enlisted during Vietnam, and he became an officer. So he had a unique style of command that consisted of, as long as he can cover it up, the incident didn't happen, which, you know, worked great. He'd tell ghost stories, and I was, oh god, ghost stories were the shit. Because I mean, AFN is the worst TV station on earth. I mean, oh god, we had the energy rappers, some dude rapping about turning off your lights, and he got busted for crack. And there were all kinds of dumbass commercials, but no normal commercials. And you know, they had the stupidest shit on. So, you know, we're slowly sliding into insanity because, you know, just embrace the horror. And we tell ghost stories at night, you know, lie about pussy, but, you know, lying about pussy gets boring because, you know, the story always ends the same. And then I fucked her, you know, but the ghost stories ended differently. And, you know, you always heard about the ghostly racing car and shit like that. But I went on leave one time and I met up with a buddy of mine, and me and him were going to school together, and he was pretty cool. And me and him and another guy, we went and picked up these 3 girls way the fuck out in the middle of nowhere, out in a place called Independence Valley. And holy fuck, talk about the land that time forgot. I mean, there'd be a kid with a banjo, except I don't think banjos had been invented yet for them. I have a lot of shit to talk about property there when I got out, but we're out there and we dropped off the girls, and it was like 3 in the morning on a Saturday. And we're going back, you know, we got shotguns and shit in the trunk because, you know, LOL Hicks. And we get pulled over, right? And the first thing is, it just feels off. I mean, we got to go for a ways to pull over because the ditch is deep and it's next to a fucking hillside. And the other side, it's a fucking sheer drop. And the cop comes up, and I remember I was in the passenger seat. And I remember looking, you know, because he's shining his flashlight. And he's got this big fucking chrome flashlight, you know, one of those 12 D cell bastards. He's panning it in the car, and he comes up, and I notice he's got that stupid fucking plastic wrap on his hat, like he's going to protect himself from rain. And he just looked off to me, and I didn't know why at the time. And his questions were really weird. I mean, the questions don't sound weird, but they were. He's like, you know, pans in the back seat, you know, there's a pair of panties in the back seat. He's like, license and registration. And I guess my buddy hands it to him. And he was just unfold it and show it to me. All right. And he goes, where are you boys going? Home. And where's home? Chehalis. Okay. All right. And then he turns around, walks away. Now he doesn't ask for insurance, which my friend was glad of because the cop walks away. My buddy's like, "Fuck, I don't have insurance on this sled." And all of a sudden, I'm looking out the back. He's got all the searchlights on us and shit. And the cherries, it's not the bar, it's the cherries rolling. And I'm like, something's wrong with this. And I turn back to look at front, and my other friend's looking out the back window. All of a sudden, the lights cut off, and he yells, "Go, go, go!" My buddy, you trust your friends, so he slams on the gas, and we peel out, spraying gravel everywhere. We fucking haul ass. He's like, "What the fuck happened? What the fuck happened?" My buddy's like, "The lights went off, and the car was gone. There's nothing back there." Now, if he's not chasing us. And sure, we're taking, the fucking corners at like fucking 60. Ass end is losing traction here and there. We get into town, we get to the gas station, and it's one of these older gas stations, and they still ran it 24/7 because sometimes you need gas at 3 a.m. for reasons. And we go in there, the guy's running. It's like, "What's wrong with you boys? You boys look freaked out." We tell him the story. He's like, "Holy shit, you ran into him." And we're like, "We ran into who?" And he goes, "That cop has been out there pulling people over since the 1950s. We're like, "What?" He's like, "He's been pulling people over since the 50s. Yeah, somebody for their license and registration was going back to the car. Guy stepped out with a shotgun and folded him in half." I'm like, "Oh, this is bullshit." All right, we got the next day. We can find where we work so we can see where, because he's driving a big ass fucking, God, I want to say it was an Impala. Just blue fucking gravel everywhere. We find where he parked, but there's only enough room to park one car there. I told my dad. I'm like, "Father," no, actually, I was like, "Yo, Dad." He's like, "What?" I'm like, "Is it true that there's this ghost cop out in Independence Valley?" And he goes, "Yeah." "What, you morons see him?" It's like, "No." He's like, "Good, because you were grounded. You weren't supposed to leave the house. You aren't supposed to leave." Okay. I was like, "I'm 19, right?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, get the fuck out of the house." So, and we asked around, and everybody had, lots of people had seen him. And it was just so weird. And, I'll tell you what was throwing me off is his uniform was wrong. And they didn't still use the red lights and, they didn't still use the red cherries because it was, 87. And so, yeah, we encountered him. Let's see, there's the Chehalis Bridge. Way back in the day, there was a massacre and a bunch of people got lynched from the Chehalis Bridge. And if you go sit out there and you sit out there at the one spot where everybody makes out and you watch, sometimes you can see the fog come up off the Chehalis River and you can see people moving around in there. And it looks like there's people lynched. And no, they weren't black people. They were commies. But no shit, they're actual socialists. But it looks like there's people swinging from the bridge truss. I mean, Washington State's all fucked up.
The 3 girls in the barn.
Oh God, that's a weird one. Did you guys hear my wife?
Yeah, well, now you got to tell it.
All right, so me and my friends were out hiking. We're like 14, 15, and because it's the country, you carry your 30-06. I had a lever action 30-30. I love that thing. Used to be able to do the rifleman with it, and we go out and we used to walk about 14 miles to the state park because it's before I got my truck, and maybe I was 13, and we're walking out there, and the storm comes up, and we hide in this barn, and we're in there, and we can hear other people moving around, and so we're all like, "Hey, who's in here?" It sounds off. There's 3 girls in there. Now there's me, there's Dale, and there's Danny, and we do introductions, and one of the girls' name is Darla, and the other one is Danielle, and the other one has the feminized version of my name. And it's like, what the fuck? So we stay up all night talking. They're going to the same place we are. We get up the next day, barn's fucking deserted. I'm like, what the fuck? And never did find out about that. Never did meet those girls. They claimed to go to the same school we did, but we never fucking saw them again. She was like me. She was a fucking redhead. And, my buddy was like, "Suppose that was us?" I'm like, "No, it wasn't us. They were girls, you moron." He's like, No. It was a real bad storm. Maybe it was us. And I'm like, "You're fucking retarded." But, that's also, we were up there We were hiking one time and we stopped, and it was a real bad storm. We fucking find a house, we knock on it. We're gonna ask them to stay in the barn or whatever because it's just pouring down. Washington State, when it starts raining, you're just fucked. And we got caught out in it. We knock. It's this nice old couple invites us in, and they're like, yeah, they give us some food, and they told us, oh, you can sleep out back, and I was like, how do we leave you $1 or something? They're like, no. And they're like, come on, we ate your food, we'll leave you $1. My buddy leaves a silver dollar on the fucking coffee table. We got to the barn, we spend the night, and we wake up pretty early because teenagers, perpetual motion machines. And we wake up and we're out there and the house is fucking burnt down. My buddy goes, how long did we sleep? But we walk in, the house has been burnt down. There's this half-burned coffee table and the silver dollar is still sitting there. My buddy looks at it and we look at each other and we fucking beat feet out of there. Never saw that house again. You get lost in Western Washington and you're fucked. You hear this shit from fucking dipshits all the time. Oh, you could go to straight line at any time and you're going to run into a road within 2 miles. Well, maybe on the East Coast, but weird shit like that is all over the Pacific Northwest. It's like the time I hit either a running bear or bear running on its back legs or Bigfoot, one of the two. I told you guys that one.
You need to tell us that one again.
Okay, so my wife, she's pregnant, and it's our I think it's our third. No, it's our second, and she's standing there. She's standing next to the table. Daughter's like 3, and my nieces and nephews are there, and she's been having labor off and on for a couple days, and she tells my mom, "Oh, the water doesn't break in girls in my family." And my mom's like, "Well, looks at me, why don't you take her up to the hospital?" And we hear, "Mama peed on the floor." So her water breaks. So, me and my brother jump in the car and we race off and we race down the A&P and we jump out and he's pumping gas. And I'm like, my wife's having the baby. What's having the baby? Like, fuck, I don't have my wallet. I'll come back and pay you. And she's like, I know you will. She looks up. She goes, where's your wife? And I look out in the car. I'm like, oh, fuck. So we drive back, get my wife. We drive up to Fort Lewis. And by that time, it's dark and shit. And so my wife takes like 2 days to have this fucking big-headed baby. And my God, that baby's head was big. It's like, holy shit, Doc, can you throw in a mercy stitch for me? And so I'm exhausted, and she had it at Madigan Army Hospital. I'm like, fuck, I'm going to drive home. It's like 1 in the morning. I'm driving from Lewis down to Centralia. And I thought I'm going to take the back way because the back way takes you through Little Rock. And from Little Rock, it takes you to Rochester. And from Rochester, back way to Centralia. Number 1, you avoid the cops. Number 2, you avoid the cops. And, I'm driving a car with no insurance because insurance is for rich people. And I'm driving this back road and all of a sudden this fucking thing comes out in front of me. And it's like 9-10 feet tall and it's on 2 legs. And I lock up the fucking brakes and I grab the e-brake and I swerve around it and I end up going backwards, staring at this fucking thing. And it's fucking looking at me in the headlights. Then I finished the 360, let go of the brake. I'm like, what the fuck was that? Because I either almost hit Bigfoot or there was a bear running across the road on 2 legs. And I get back and tell my dad. My dad was dead by that point. I told who was that I told? It wasn't my mom, so I wasn't speaking to her. Because incident when she's like, but anyway. And I told somebody, I was like, man, I either hit Bigfoot or a fucking bear on 2 legs. Everybody's like, Bigfoot. I'm like, well, maybe it was a bear on 2 legs. Like, nope, Bigfoot. Like,
no, it's obviously everyone says Bigfoot. It's Bigfoot, damn it. No bear walks like that.
But it's the way it stared at me as I went, as my car goes, because when I did the 180, the headlights were pointed at it, and the way it just watched me, go by. It was one of those moments like you see in movies. I had a cigarette in my mouth, one hand on the steering wheel, one hand on the e-brake. I'm staring at it, it's staring at me as it goes by. I'm like, what the fuck was that? Oh, fuck. That was a fucking nightmare month. April. I mean, shit.
So, unless you've got more stories about the Pacific Northwest, which would be awesome because I don't think we've heard a lot of those. There were a couple that I think you could tell in detail. You had mentioned there was that road in Germany where like a tank crew went down it and they never came back. And people would keep disappearing from this one route.
That fucking okay. So, well, first of all, I got to tell a story I promised to tell. Okay, before we get back to VO flicking. Now, so I come home on leave and I go see my uncle, and He lives in Montana. He's a college professor and shit. We're talking to him, and we're at the VFW, and he's like, you're a man now. You went to war. I was like, wow, thanks. But he's like, no, you're good. And we're sitting there, we're swapping stories and shit. And one of them goes, hey, Ross, tell him about the vampire. I'm like, what fucking vampire? And the guy goes, no shit, man. We're in Vietnam and we met a vampire. I'm like, you fucking did not. I got a couple in me. He's like, no, totally. And so they tell him this story, right? So I can't verify any of this because it's VFW and it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and my uncle's like, okay, so check this. All right, helicopter comes into our alpha base and drops off a couple guys, and they said, yeah, we were supposed to have another guy, but he didn't show. I'm like, okay. So they're introducing to people. Well, that's the VC and that's the NVA, and it's 1967, and this place sucks. And that night, this guy comes through the wire and was like, hey, I'm here. Here's my orders. And they're like, weren't they supposed to pick you up in Saigon? He's like, I got my own transportation out here. And they're like, you did what now, mate? But anyway, this guy was apparently like super fucking creepy. And some people in Vietnam only went out at night so that the light didn't mess up their night vision, because the longer you go without exposing your eyes to light, the better your night vision is. It's called visual purple.
Mhm.
And this was one of those guys that like would close his eyes when he lit his cigarette, right? And he's well known for being weird. He's always pulling point or drag with the patrols. But after about a month, my uncle goes, yeah, me and Chet, we noticed that the locals, they gotten really fucking jittery. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, number one, the VC attacks, kind of trailed off. He goes, now that's weird, that we hadn't really engaged them in combat. As a matter of fact, he goes, by the end of the month, it had been 2 weeks since we engaged the VC. I'm like, well, that's fucking normal. He's like, where we were? Yeah. It's like, okay. So finally, the interpreter comes up and goes, listen, the headman of the village wants to talk to you. And my uncle is like, well, fuck, I'm an officer. God damn it. And the headman takes him, and they show they've got these little goats and shit. And they're pointing at him and babbling. And he looks at the translator. The translator goes, he says they're all drained of blood. It's like, was it chupacabra? No. And then like a week after that, they come across 3 bodies of NVA guys, and they're all really super pale. And and one of them looks like it was shooting and they were shooting and running. And they're like, what the fuck is going on? And this is where, all 5 guys sitting at the table swore up and down, swore on a fucking challenge coin that they had bite marks on their necks. Not the Dracula fanged ones, but like somebody had bit a chunk out over their jugular. I'm like, you guys are fucking yanking my chain. He goes, no, it's even better. See, this guy also did tunnel rat shit. He'd go in the tunnels and come back out like hours later or the next night, and he'd say the tunnels were clear. I was like, okay, so he goes,
Explain to the audience what tunnel rats are.
okay, the VC had tunnels all over Vietnam, and tunnel rats were guys who were short and wiry, and they would go in by themselves with a knife and a pistol and a leather and a fucking tool, and they would kill the Viet Cong in the fucking tunnels. These guys didn't have a high life expectancy, but you do what you got to do. So anyway, they noticed that this guy never seems to get fucking hurt. I mean, grenades, they started getting heavy enemy contact. My uncle's friend goes, the VC came at us like we never fucking seen him come at us before. We're talking by the hundreds, and they were fucking mad. And I'm like, well, how can you tell the difference between a mad VC and a not mad VC? He goes, because they don't run when the fast movers drop napalm. Sounds legit. I'm like, so where do you get vampire out of this shit? He goes, well, dude was always tripping the ambushes and he never got hurt. I'm like, well, I could just be he's a lucky fucking dick. You always run into those guys. Well, here's the kicker. He's never, he's got tears in his uniform, but no markings on him. He's pale with black hair. I'm like, okay, so he's Mac Bolin. What the fuck? They're like, yeah, but the drained bodies. I'm like, so it's a chupacabra. Fucking Vietnam's all fucked up. We bombed that place too much or not enough. And they go, okay, so here's the kicker. Dude hits a booby trap. I'm like, so he goes, and it kills him. I'm like, okay, so problem solved. He's not a vampire. He goes, no. He got hit in the heart with a wooden crossbow bolt. I'm like, that's it? That's your vampire story? That's the worst vampire story I've ever heard. But that was their story about their vampire in their unit in Vietnam. And I'm thinking, I'm telling my buddies this when I go home to Buell Flicking, and they listen, they're all nodding along, and I look at what they think. They're all like, they'll look at each other, look at me, and go, vampire. And it dawns on me that if I'd had the same shit happen to me, I'd be like, vampire. But no, there was this fucking highway. There was this road. You had two roads. You come down and you go down the hill from behind 144th, and there's two roads. One leads to the back gate, and the other one leads down Range Road into the ASP. And you go down the Range Road one for a little ways, and there's a fucking dirt road. And you're not supposed to take this road. I mean, there's fucking signs that says "Do not take." Nobody knows this fucking road goes anyway. I mean, who gives a fuck? I mean, if they're not gonna force march me out there, I don't care. And so apparently, some fucking tanker unit. It wasn't an M1 because M1s were hot shit, and everybody would have been out there looking for it with a magnifying glass. Not the was it the M60? Well, I can't remember what the M60 was called. Like, no, it wasn't the Sherman. Was it Patton? Anyway, some dumb fucking shit. I think so. It was the one prior to the M1, and it went rolling down there and never came back. The MPs went down there looking for it and never came back. And everybody's like, "Where the fuck is it going?" I mean, we figured when the wall went down, we're like, you know what? We're gonna find out where this fucking thing goes. We had a 5-ton going in. We're like, maybe it goes into Eastern Germany. They're getting bagged. No, it just went down and then went in a circle. It went about 4 miles and then it went down the mountainside and into this area where the road just went in a circle around a big outcropping of rock. Fuck me. It's like there was a section of road where it said it had a warning too. Do not speed. So far, X amount of people. And here's a little fact people don't know. During the Cold War in Europe, more people died every year from accidents and training accidents just in Europe alone than were killed in the War on Terror. The casualty rates for Europe were higher than the War on Terror casualty rates on a month-to-month, year-to-year basis. I mean, there were posts that would have like a fucking 5-ton roll and kill 30 dudes, or like what happened to me, a fucking 5-ton goes plunging into the fucking river. God, but nobody could figure out. Well, this one corner said, do not speed, and I think it was up to like 70 deaths one time. And the thing is, if you stop your car and got out, which by the way don't do, and look down the mountain, you can see it's like 1,000-foot drop because you can see the treetops. But if you actually did your land nav and went down there, you'd find pancaked cars at the bottom of the cliff from motherfuckers who decided to take that corner a little too fast and discovered this ain't Looney Tunes. Gravity works. I mean, there was like an M113 down there and shit. And I mean, it's pancaked. We're standing there. My buddy goes, "I think the bodies are still in there." I'm like, "No, they totally came and packed him out." Yes, they're still in there. But I mean, that corner. I mean, we had some weird shit in Buell Flicking. Oh God, this was going on. So one of my buddies, he takes AWOL Trail to go to the, I think he was going to Jerry's. Yeah, he was going to Jerry's Keller Bar. And that was a wonderful place. It turned out to be a fucking KGB front. But that's where the long story about how people started ending up dead. But anyway, he went down the trail. He goes, "I'm gonna take AWOL Trail, meet you at Jerry's Keller Bar." I was like, "Fine, we're gonna take a taxi, you cheap fuck." He vanishes. Right? I'm like, fuck. So search parties go out and look for him. The CO is like, "Well, maybe he's AWOL." And I'm like, "Where the fuck did he go?" And where the fuck did he go? It was a fucking week before payday. Was he stand out there outside the airport with a tin cup and get a fucking plane ticket put in it? I was like, "He's not AWOL. He was excited to be here." The CO's like, "So he was crazy." So 2 weeks go by. I'm on CQ. Phone rings. I'm like, "Oh, goddamn it." I pick up the phone. I'm like, yeah, 311. Corporal Downs. Can I help you, sir, ma'am? And it's him. And he's like, "Hey, I'm on a phone." I'm like, "No shit." He goes, "Well, I'm calling you from Nebraska." I'm like, "Nebraska? The fuck are you doing in Nebraska?" He goes, "I woke up in a cornfield." I'm like, "How much have you had to fucking drink?" He goes, "No shit. I woke up in a cornfield, man. Here, talk to this farmer guy." And this farmer's like, "Is this really the Army?" I'm like, "Corporal Wells, how can I help you?" And he's like, "Huh, sounds like the Army. So I got your Army boy here." I'm like, chase him around with a shovel and beat him. That makes him laugh. So he comes out of my cornfield asking how to get to some place called Jerry's. I'm like, okay, so yeah, we kind of want him back. And I call the CO. He's like, you better have a good goddamn reason for fucking waking me up. I'm like, so we found rounds. So what do you mean you found rounds? I'm like, yeah, specialist rounds. What about him? Well, he's in Nebraska. The fuck's he doing in Nebraska? I'm like, I don't know. He came out of a cornfield. So the MPs pick him up and they put him on a plane back. He's got to go through MI because, you know, this is suspicious as fuck. And he's like, okay, so I'm going down AWOL trail. And all of a sudden there's this bright white light and I wake up in a cornfield. And it's like dawn. And I come out of the cornfield and there's this farmer. I'm like, wait a minute. What about in between? He goes, what do you mean in between? I'm like, what the fuck happened in between? He's like, nothing. I'm like, you've been gone for 2 fucking weeks. He's like, I have not. CO interviews him. You know. And his squad leader comes up and goes, this motherfucker is trying to claim that he sees a bright white light on AWOL trail and he wakes up in Nebraska. So we all figured what he probably got drunk, somehow got back to the States and figured I'll make this story. So a month or two go by. And another guy comes up missing. Same thing. I'm going to take AWOL trail and go down to the, I think it was the Zwaitana. I'm going to go to the Zwaitana. No, Zwaitana was the last time. Anyway, I'm going to go to the Green Goose. Green Goose was down there. Got that. Above that bar, it's the only bar that had a piece of plywood instead of a window after we threw some fucking tanker through it. we get our drinks in a bucket, and he doesn't show up. I'm like, motherfucker. So we go out and look for him. Everybody gets yelled at. We're on lockdown for a couple days. I'm like, I'm on CQ. I'm like, man, this place sucks. You know, I've already had to do checks multiple times. That fucking tapper's in the goddamn vents. And I swear to God, I wish it would quit moaning. Sounds like it's fucking masturbating in there. And phone rings. Pick it up. Yep. Yeah. Corporal Waltz, how can I help you, sir? Hey, got you one of your Army boys again. I'm like, what the fuck? He goes, so listen, this costing me big overseas money. But I got one of your Army boys. Come get him. I'm like, let me talk to him. And I'm like, the fuck are you doing in Nebraska? It's like, how'd you know where I was? I was like, let me guess. Woke up in a cornfield. Yeah. The fuck? The CO's like, I think it's the Russians. Yeah, first sergeant's like, what do you mean you think it's the Russians? I think it's the Russians. Yeah, they penetrated West German airspace and stopped to pick up some dipshit. Then flew him all the way to Nebraska and dropped into a cornfield for shits and giggles. Well, yeah, I think it's some kind of Soviet plot. I'm like, I think it's the Air Force. What do you think, Jim? I think it's the Air Force dicking with us. You know, and of course, you know, the XO's like, it's aliens. Like, get the fuck out of here with this alien shit. This happens like 5 times and then just quits. You know, one guy claimed that he woke up and saw distorted faces. The other guy swore up and down he woke up and there was a bunch of iguanas looking at him. And every time they'd fucking vanish and wake up in this fucking cornfield. This old man was getting mad. He's like, I don't know what kind of games you're fucking playing. And it just stops. Nobody knows why.
What part of Nebraska were they popping up in?
Cornfield.
Oh, cornfield. Okay.
Nowhere. That's where. Nowhere, Nebraska. I mean, if it had been near the silos, we would have gotten it. If it had been near a military base, even a National Guard base, we would have gotten it. But no, middle of the fucking cornfield. Nobody had any idea. And we'd always ask him, so where were you for 2 weeks? He's like, I wasn't gone for 2 weeks, man. You were gone for 2 weeks. I wasn't gone for 2 weeks. And it's like, fuck. You know, and that's when, you know, of course, we have our big brain geniuses. And one of them, you know, we're sitting there drinking and brings up the story again. He goes, well, you know, actually, it supposedly, if you go faster than light, blah, 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 blah. Like, shut the fuck up. He's like, he could have been gone for an hour faster than light and went the entire week. It's like, what do I just fucking smack you? I know how relativity works. Well, it's a theory. It's like, it's not a theory. It's not aliens. Well, what is it? I don't fucking know. The ghost of Hitler? But, you know, writing this shit up. And the thing was after the third one, these fucking officers from the Air Force would show up. And these dudes in suits, and they all had sticks in their ass, and they'd interview him. And he was like, they asked me the dumbest fucking questions. Like, what? Did I see any aliens? It's like, did you see any aliens? He's like, no. And apparently, once in a while, they would ask him, so did you see an Asian woman with platinum blonde hair? No. Did you see a big one of the guys was black? They asked him, so did you see a big Viking looking dude? He's like, I'm black, man. I remember seeing a big white Viking. No, I didn't see shit. No, nobody ever offered me an explanation. Nobody's ever offered me an explanation.
Well,
Fucking AWOL trail.
well, the thing is, those questions that the Air Force asked him, you're familiar with the Nordic alien stuff,
Yes.
right? Well, the other one,
At the time, I wasn't.
the lesser known one was the whole thing about the so-called tall whites, which are only tall in comparison to grays. They're not actually that tall. And this is a story that pops up all over the world, which is a incredibly beautiful, either one alone or in a pair, an incredibly beautiful Asian woman with pale skin and platinum hair will seduce them and give them the night of their life.
That sounds like a hooker.
And then they get dumped off in the
It's some random ass cornfield.
yeah.
See, I hated that place because, you tell this shit at the NCO club and everybody would nod along because, it happened at 54th. Two of their guys disappeared. 144th had two disappear. Same exact thing. Same fucking cornfield. That farmer was fucking mad. He got fucking pissy. He'd just call and be like, I got one of your fucking boys, and slam the phone down. Who's that? That's that dude in Nebraska. Again? I'll call the CO. That was just fucking weird. My theory was, and I didn't find this out till later, what a lot of people don't know is they've got this drug. I didn't find out about it until I was Fort Hood, and there was reasons they gave it to me. I'm not going to go into why. But they give you this drug, and it prevents you from forming short-term memories. So you can literally lose anything from a couple hours to, I think the most they did me up for was 3 weeks. No memory. 1 minute they're giving you the injection and then you're talking, and the next minute you're doing the flashcards and going, how did I get here? And they'd ask you if you'd remember anything, and you remember nothing. Your memories are vivid. Getting the injection, talking to the guy and doing the alphabet, and then waking up with the flashcards. Your memories never form. They don't come back later as recovered memories. They just never form. So sometimes I wonder, was it some government agency fucking with us?
After the Rendlesham incident in England, which is one of the more famous and one of the few UFO cases that actually had evidence that people took very seriously, the 4 initial guys that had reported it said that they were taken into a room. They were interrogated by MIBs, essentially, and that they were all given that injection afterward.
And then you don't remember what happens for the next 12, God knows how long. And I never heard that, and they gave it to me at Hood in 92. And, it started me thinking, what if they grabbed those dudes and gave them the injections and had them do a bunch of tests and then just dropped them off in this fucking cornfield because LOL, fuck you. And that way they could track what happened. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility, because MK Ultra was a real thing, and so was Majestic 12.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't realize that those were real. Those were not some shit Stephen King made up. That was real shit. But oh fuck, I was gonna mention. Did I mention that? I mentioned that underneath Vielflicken were all kinds of tunnels and they were wired up. But Vielflicken was the only place like that. Nuremberg, Darmstadt, all of them had problems. Nuremberg Army Hospital was haunted. I hated that place. I fucking hated it.
Talk a little bit about that.
Nuremberg Army Hospital. I was sent there several times injured. I got injured during my career because the Army in the 80s had their idea was safety, what matched pretty much a 1700s coal mine. I got a scar on my chest where I got fucking hit by a piece of banding that penetrated my chest and lodged on my rib. They didn't care.
Ooh.
It didn't go past my ribs, so they just gave me fucking 4 stitches and told me to go back to work. Nobody gave a fuck. I mean, nobody gave a fuck about you. You were replaceable. Back in the day, it was mission first, and if you have to die to complete the mission, that's acceptable because it's the mission that's important. Whole different mindset to now. Training accidents just happened. I mean, oh well, more where that came from. Well, like a leader, one of my leaders told me, there's always more white trash in the trailer park. There's always more Mexicans in the barrio, and there's always more black dudes in the ghetto. So we don't care about you. I was like, wow, thanks. He goes, so you got to be tough to survive. But anyway, so I'm in Nuremberg Army Hospital, and my appendix had ruptured. The surgery was fucking terrible and shit. And they sent me back out, and I had to go back in because I was internal bleeding. And I'm laying there, and I can faintly hear people screaming. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like tapping the nurse thing because it's late. And the army back then didn't believe in drugs either. She comes in.
Wait. You were tapping the nurse, or you were tapping the
tapping
thing
the
to get
button. Tapping the nurse button. Tap, 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 nurse. Tapping the nurse. No, I couldn't. There's no way I could have done any thrusting because I had my whole belly split open. But she comes in and she's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "I keep hearing screaming." And she's like, "Oh, don't worry about that." I'm like, "I'm fucking worried about it. It keeps waking me up. I can hear people screaming." She looks at me for a long moment. And she goes, "Oh, the hospital's haunted," and leaves. It's like, wait, what? And that was the same hospital where you'd wake up in the middle of the night, you'd look over, and there'd be a dude dressed all in white scrubs staring at you. Pick up the thing because he wouldn't answer you, and you press the button, and the nurse would come in, and as soon as she walked in, she'd block your vision from that corner for a second, and then he's gone. And you tell him, "Hey, there was some dude in white staring at me for like 10 minutes." And she'd be like, "Oh, yeah, well, the hospital's haunted. Good night." You'd hear people in the hallways, and you'd get up and stagger out there holding on to the fucking IV stand, and you'd look out in the hallway, and there's nothing. It's dead silent, except for the emergency lights are on, and you're like, I mean, one of the times I said, "Fuck this." I was supposed to be in the hospital for 5 days because they'd opened my stomach up so far, and it was the third night, and I look around, and there is nobody in there. I'm like, "Fuck this." I go in, digging my shit, put on my uniform, fucking pull the IV out, slowly wait my way downstairs, call my unit. I'm like, "Come get me now." On the way back, NCO's like, "So why'd you leave the hospital?" I said, "I woke up and that motherfucker guy in white was sitting on the end of the bed." And he looks at me and goes, "I hate that bastard." I'm like, "What?" He goes, Yeah. Back in the day, I got busted up. They sent me to Nuremberg. He goes, broke both legs. That motherfucker would sit in the chair in the corner and stare at me. I was like, "She saw him too." He's like, Yeah. Nuremberg's haunted, man. Just take me home and give me a fifth of whiskey. I mean, we bombed that country too much or not enough.
I don't think we bombed it enough.
Oh man. Shit. There was rumors. I never got to see it. There was a whorehouse in Fulda and a big picture in the back behind the bar. And guys I knew swore up and down that you could see the picture move now and then. I never saw it. And you can laugh at me all you want, but I'd been there for 5 fucking years. Lost my fucking girlfriend, and other shit, and it was before I ended up in on-post housing. But I went to whorehouses a couple times, if nothing else, because hey, it's what you do, right? I don't know. Maybe morals were different. It wasn't considered that big of a deal. My wife.
What was the painting of?
It was of a battle with cannons and swords, and it was done in real vibrant colors. And everybody swore up and down it would move. And I'd sit there and stare at it. My buddies are all getting laid. I'm staring at that. My wife was like, "Do you ever go to any of the whorehouses?" I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "Did you ever do anything?" I'm like, "No, I went there to fucking drink milk." "What the fuck do you think I went there for?" And she was like, "How long were you there again?" And I told her about Veal Flick, and she's like, "Oh, that place sounds like a shithole." I was like, "Yeah." That's the same place I got my room got robbed 3 times in a row. Because I'm a retard.
Okay, not really quite related to the idea of a moving painting, but it does remind me of a high school story that was always amusing to me. And that there was some sort of street fair that would happen in my where I live, the suburbs in Riverside. The suburbs, we would have this Wednesday night, the Mission Inn festival, and it was like one of these public gathering things where it was just to kind of promote commerce and community. And there was a modern art museum there, and it was always open during it. And high school students, it was one of those things where we'd all go there and just bum around and cause problems and be teenagers. And the Modern Art Museum was always a place that we went to because you could go up into the kids level and there was all this shit to play with and crafts projects. And, again, we're being assholes. But once one of these times I wandered in and there was this modern art display, and it was essentially just a TV tuned to static on a loop. And there was some paragraph next to it about if you stared at it long enough, you started to see patterns. And no, you didn't. You did. It was just TV static, right? But one day, once I walk in there and the class salutatorian, okay? So, this guy that's got incredible grades is just sitting in front of it weeping. Oh my God. It's so sad. And it's like, well, and I'm like, what? Well, what's going on, man? The lady, all she wanted was her log back, and they took it away, and she just wanted the log.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
And he's crying his eyes out, and he is not capable of driving. I drive him home, and finally, yeah, I took 4 tabs of acid.
There it is.
Yep.
Oh man. Well, we had you have day on day off in December for Christmas, and in Europe everybody like abandoned ship over Christmas. I'm telling you, the Russians would have ever attacked around Christmas, there would have been nobody there. I mean, there'd be like a dozen dudes in my group was supposed to have 350 people. Come holidays, there's like a dozen of us. Everybody else has gone stateside, which I remember sitting there one time and my buddy goes, I don't think the Russians are serious. I'm like, what? I don't think the Russians are serious. I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, we know they've infiltrated all over the place. We know that there's KGB running around, and a couple of people have gotten tortured and murdered in their own fucking house. So we know they know all kinds of shit. I'm like, okay. He goes, so it's like almost Christmas. I'm like, yeah. He goes, there's like 15 of us. I'm like, yeah. He goes, group's 350. I'm like, yeah. He goes, there's 15 of us. He goes, 144th has 6 motherfuckers there out of 200. 168th has, I think, 5 tankers and an ugly dog instead of, 80 tanks worth of people. I'm like, so he goes, yeah, the Russians were serious. They just invade now. I mean, who's going to stand up to them? Huh. I looked down, I was like, I never thought of it like that. He's like, yeah, they could, because same thing. Can you imagine if they hit us on Sunday morning, payday weekend? I was like, fuck, I'd be so drunk you couldn't even get me off the floor. He's like, yeah, if they were serious about this shit, they'd hit us like Sunday morning, payday weekend, or they'd hit us during the holidays. I'm like, well, yeah, the snow's asshole deep on a tall Indian, so, maybe they can't get to us. He's like, oh, yeah, like the Russians can't fight in the winter. I'm like, okay, you got a point. But, yeah, he always told me, I don't think they're serious. But I'm sitting in there, and it's like me. There's so few people, it's like me and one other dude. And the tapper's back. That fucking tapping and moaning. Oh, God, I hated it. Whatever that fucking was, I hated that fucking thing. And it's up on the 3rd floor doing its thing. And there's an officer up there who keeps coming down and bitching because I can hear a tapping noise and a moaning in the vent and you need to find it. I was like, sir, if I could fucking find it, I would kill it. It's been here for 3 years. 2 buildings. So this is the 3rd building, built where the first one was, and it's still here tapping and moaning. We need to do something about it. And I was like, man, fuck you. I hope it fucking eats you. And so he's up there looking for it. I'm sitting there and I hear the fucking TV come on in the rec room. I'm like, what the fuck? Get up and go in there. It's turned to static, so I turn the fucker off. Come back in, sit down. Fucking TV turns on. I'm, what the fuck? And I go in there and I unplug it. And we had another room that was called the game room because ping pong tables, pool table, foosball, and video games. And I hear one of the fucking video games start up. I'm like, what the shit? Go in there, room's dark, fucking thing's on. I'm like, what the shit? Go and yank the fucking cord out. Walking back into behind the CQ desk, and the fucking TV comes on again. I'm like, what the fuck? Fucking turn the TV off, and I hear the soda machine chonk, chonk. I'm like, what? Go in there, and the fucking thing's throwing sodas out on the floor. I'm like, yeah, I ought to call this in. So I pick up the phone, and there's no dial tone. I'm like, what? Try. We have multiple. We had 8 phones because reasons. I don't know. I doubt it's national security now, but all the fucking sites had to be able to call in. We had to have 2 besides. We have 8 phones. Another one, you know, I'll pick up another one. Nothing. You know. CQ pushes through my assistant CQ pushes through the door. He's like, hey man, things are getting a little fucking weird. TV comes on again. I'm like, go turn that fucking TV off. Comes back and he goes, what the fuck's going on? I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, the fucking lights up on the 3rd floor all went out. The emergency lights came on. I'm like, so he goes, yeah, well, they keep flicking back and forth from red to white. I'm like, what do you mean they're flicking back and forth? He goes, we'll go up and look at it. So I said, hey, listen, check the phones and try to find one working. Call in that we got some weird shit going down. He's like, man, post staff dude, you can be pissed. I'm like, they ain't gonna do shit. I go up there on the 3rd floor. As soon as I step out in the hall, I hear it. Tap, 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 tap. I'm like, God damn it, he's back. And sure as shit, the lights go off and the emergency lights keep flashing from red to white. I'm like, what the fuck? Walk up there and look at it. Walking past the laundry room, I hear the washer start. I'm like, this is not amusing me. This is not fucking funny. I whip open the fucking laundry room door and there's jack and shit in there and the washer quits. I'm like, okay, I'm getting the fucking guns. And go in, unlock the safe, get the guns out, give him one, grab mine. Lieutenant comes down. There's somebody in the vents. I know there's someone in the vents. You don't have to talk to me like that. I'm a lieutenant. Okay, tell you what. Why don't you go in here? Take a pistol. Why don't you crawl in the vent after it? Well, what is it? I'm like, I don't know, sir. It's a thing in the vent. We call it the tapper. Well, you should do something about it. And he walks off. I'm like, look at this. I'm gonna kill that motherfucker by morning. And he's like, hey, while you were gone, all the phones rang. I'm like, what do you mean all the fucking phones rang? He's like, all the fucking phones start ringing at once. I'm like, okay, did you answer at least one? He's like, yeah, but there was nothing there. He goes, I picked up one and they all stopped. Okay, now we're in the twilight zone. I'm like, okay, arm up. I'm like, go down, lock all the exits, chain all of them. Chain all of them, but he goes, well, what about the fire escape? I said, chain that fucker too. Well, what if there's a fire? Then we all fucking die. So I'm walking down the 2nd floor hallway because I got the list of who's in the barracks, all 6 of us. Yeah, banging on the door till they answer. What the fuck do you want? We got some weird shit going on. What the fuck ever, man. I hope a monster eats you. Yeah, we're friendly back in the day. And I'm passing the fucking laundry room and it starts up again. I whip the door open. Washer shuts off. I'm like, we're having electrical problems. That's all this is. I'm going to go downstairs because this is perfectly normal. And I step out in the hallway and the lights go off, except for the one above me. I'm like, you know what? I'm not done with this shit. Walking down the hallway and the one above me would come on and the one behind me would go out. I'm like, right here in the movie is where the guy gets eaten by a monster. So I go down, my assistant CQ's nowhere to be seen. I'm like, well, I guess it ate him. The phones all start ringing. He comes running out of the fucking game room. He goes, the fucking video game was on. And he goes, and the phones are ringing. I'm like, yeah, and I reach for it. And he's like, don't pick it up, man. Don't pick it up. And as soon as I touch the receiver, they all quit. Right in mid-ring. I just unplugged them all. He's like, well, what if somebody wants to call? What if it's important? I'm like, fuck them. He goes, what if World War III starts? Fuck them. And so the night goes on like this the whole fucking night. The whole goddamn night. Lights are fucked up. Oh, the TV? Go in there. Pull the plug. I'm halfway out of the fucking day room. And the fucking TV turns on again. Okay, this isn't funny any longer. I'm not having fun. So I just left it on, locked the door. I'm a man. Yeah, I'm tough. I just locked the door. That's their problem. And morning comes, and all 6 people in the barracks shows up. And the lieutenant shows up, and he's like, I didn't get any sleep. I'm like, let me guess, sir, the tapper. Well, that and there's somebody thinks they're funny and is playing jump rope in the hallway. Yeah, fuck this shit. And that's how the night went. And until like Christmas, for like almost a week straight, every night was like this. Finally, everybody comes back after New Year's. And I know this is coming. We got the CO. I don't know his fucking name. I don't even care what his name is. Okay, he's gonna be gone before I fucking see him again. He calls me into the office and he's looking at logbooks. And he goes, would you like to amend your logbook statements? No. It says here that you unplugged the TV, but it kept coming on. Yes, sir. It says you unplugged the video games, but they kept coming on. Yes, sir. It says that there was weird lights outside in the parking lot. Yes, sir. It says that sometimes the POVs privately owned vehicles across the street. The headlights would come on and off. Yes, sir. Would you like to amend this to have it make sense? No, because I won't falsify military paperwork. That's what's happening. I want you to go to mental health. Fine, whatever. And I go to mental health, tell the guy the story, and looks at me, goes, so check this out. We had to abandon the dispensary. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, we had to abandon the dispensary over at Christmas. I'm like, why? He goes, because there was somebody up on the 3rd floor. There was a banshee on the 3rd floor screaming. What? He goes, yeah, totally. You could hear her screaming all fucking night. We just abandoned it and fucking stayed in our barracks. I was like, so you believe me? He's like, oh, yeah, totally. Go back to work. That place was a fucking shithole. Everybody I talked to the whole fucking week, everything was going wrong. And it was snowing to boot. So, everything was going wrong, but we're trapped in the fucking barracks. And I guess the ghost of Hitler decided he wanted to fuck with everybody all week. And I hated that place. And, you could tell this place was a shithole because that was, it's not even really a ghost story. It's just a bunch of stupid shit happened. Oh, yeah, and I unloaded my 45 twice.
Well, okay, the one you just told about all the electronic things going crazy.
Yeah.
2 things come to mind. And one, that's a common report of UFO encounters, but not all the banshee shit and not all the ghost stuff. And the other thing that comes to mind is the opening sequence to John Carpenter's The Fog.
Yes. Yeah, we watched that later. It was like, oh, yeah, this is great. That was the year that some genius sent us the videotapes with The Thing and Predator and The Fog.
Oh, God.
Yeah, they're looking through the box. Man, these motherfuckers want us to kill each other this winter. Oh, fuck that place. I mean, you'd be sitting up there in the tower because you got guard duty. And, you're in trouble. You obviously pissed somebody off. You're sitting up in this tower and the fog comes up and you can hear the vehicles start up and see the lights start flashing and shut off. Now, by regulation, you're supposed to go down there and see what's going on. Nah, fuck that. I'm staying in the guard tower. You'd be up there with some brand new fucking boot. And you'd be like, we're supposed to go down and check the vehicles. You go down that ladder and you go in that fog. When you come back and try to climb the ladder, I'm going to shoot you. But what if it's somebody trying to steal the vehicles? And go where, genius? It's fucking 6 feet of snow. We got here on snowshoes. Where are they going to take the vehicle? They'll sell it to the Russians. Get the fuck out of the tower.
Oh, God.
People, I mean, that shit went on all the fucking time. And you just eventually became numb to it. I mean, it's like I was gone for 4 months. I was out of my sight for 4 months. Oh, no, let's see it 4 or 6 months, but we moved over 1 billion metric tons of ammo. That's a lot of ammo. That's a lot of fucking ammo. And we come back, and I'm walking in, and, I got my hat on backwards underneath my helmet. I'm all fucking muddy and dirty and bloody, and got my eye patch on. I got stitches on my face. And I walk up, and this fucking, out of nowhere, there's this fucking officer. He's like, you don't salute in the army you're in? I look, oh, who the fuck are you? And I see he's got officer rank, and I'm like, And he's like, I'm the platoon leader for 1st Platoon. I'm like, oh, good for you, sir. Bet your mom's proud. And I walk away. Don't you walk away from me. Oh, fuck that guy. So I get in the arms room, turn to my weapons, M16, M203, 45, M3 grease gun. Turn in my flares. Basically I'm standing there for fucking half an hour handing him shit. Rest of the crew comes in, hands it all in. Go upstairs, tell the platoon sergeant, hey, we're back. And then it dawns on me, I have no idea who this is at the platoon sergeant desk. The platoon sergeant looks at me and goes, okay, you're back. I look around, I realize I don't recognize any of the NCOs. And she looks at me and she goes, and who are you? I'm like, I'm Sergeant Raltz. I was acting Jack, Tri-Corporal Raltz. She goes, never heard of you. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, okay. So go down to my room. And there's some asshole living in my room. He's been there for 3 months. So what happened? Eventually it comes out what happened. The MPs come and they fucking, because it's secure part of post. MPs got to sit in there. And it's not the first time this has happened. It's the first time it happened to me. And at least nobody threw a flashbang at me. But they call us in and sit there, and it turns out that there's been, in the months I've been gone, there have been 3 company commanders, multiple platoon sergeants. We don't even have a first sergeant anymore. I mean, the office has been empty for like a month. Well, somewhere along the line, they lost me and they lost Kreesel's squad, because Kreesel came in later and they threw flashbangs at him. And they completely lost us, and they fucking shipped our shit home and told our parents we were dead.
Oh God.
Fuck.
And my mom did what she usually does and burned all my shit.
Ugh.
So I was really mad. And everybody was like, "So how's it going, Ghost Boy?" I'd be like, "Man, fuck you." My platoon sergeant's like, "So they just didn't know where you were and panicked." I was like, "What do you mean they panicked?" They're like, "They panicked, and so they just erased. They just hid your file. They found our files underneath the drawer of the CO's desk. Underneath, it was actually in the desk under the drawer. They found our files. Dude had hidden the files because he panicked because they couldn't find us. All they had to do was call." And what's funny is the guys who were in charge of the ammo down in Quasi and in the Class 5 operations, they knew where we were. They came in and vouched for me. He's like, "He moved 1 billion tons of ammunition. I kind of knew where he was." Well, there's no record of him in the company. I have tons of fucking paperwork from him from the last 6 months. Well, he's not on the TO&E. Fuck this, I'm out. And that's why when some of these ghost stories, it's like, is it malevolence or is it incompetence? But some of them don't have an answer, like, why the fuck does the TV keep turning on? And what the fuck is in the vents? That drove us fucking crazy. Because there was no reason for it, because the barrack, that third building, that last building, was not vent. It had vents, but it wasn't vent heated. But it had vents down the hallway, and the vents went into the rooms, and we tracked the vent, and it went down to each stairwell, and then it dropped all the way down to the basement, and then went into the wall. So where the fuck does it go?
This is one of those things where like it was put in there to, because the money had to go somewhere.
We don't know, because we used steam-fed radiators.
That is so weird.
So why was there even vents?
That pipe then led to the special room where they were pumping in hallucinogenic gas to test you for MTLP.
What, babe? It went to the Nazi ovens. That's where it went. Who knows?
Oh, Jesus.
I mean, fuck. I hated that place. That fucking thing in the vents, man. The worst thing is you'd be in the stairwell and you'd hear something. You ever heard a rat or a raccoon scrabble through a sheet metal duct?
Yeah.
Yes.
You would hear that through the cinder block, and you could actually hear it moving. You'd be like, "What the fuck is in the vents?" We actually went outside the building. We used all our cool technology of a tape measure and math, and we tracked to where the vent was, and we dug down, and we found where the vent came out, and it came out in a grate that was buried under 6.5 feet of dirt. But there was no, monster tunnels. There was nothing cool. It just ended. To this day, nobody knows what the fuck was in the vent. There was something in the vent, because it made tapping noises, and it also went. I mean, it literally sounded like somebody in there masturbating. And it would go on for hours, and it would change floors. You could hear it scrabble through the ducts and going up the stairwell or down the stairwell, and then you'd walk down the floor where it quit. And after about 10 minutes, you could hear it in one of the rooms. Tap, 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 tap. Well, you could hear it in the hallway. Tap, 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 tap. And if you found the right room, you could hear it in there. It's like, what the fuck is it?
Didn't you say that also you'd get weird phone calls where it was heavy breathing?
Yeah, we got heavy breathing phone calls. You'd pick up the phone and you'd be like, 311. Sergeant Rawls, how can I help you? You just called me. No, I didn't. My phone rang and I picked up. I don't know who the fuck you are. What do you want? You're supposed to be military decorum, but when you start screaming profanity at me, I'm gonna scream it back. And you know what fucking time it is? It's 9 o'clock at night. The fuck it is? It's 6 a.m. What? Where are you? If the lines would get crossed, we'd end up talking to guys at units in Korea, random houses in the U.S. You know, pick up the phone, answer it, yeah, and it'd be some woman be like, "Yeah, you called me. Why I call you? Well, yes, you did. My phone rang. I picked it up. I didn't call you. Yes, you did, lady. I know who I called. I didn't call you. Well, I don't know what you're doing calling me at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, lady. It's fucking midnight. Where are you? I'm in Germany. Oh, I'm in South Carolina. The fuck you call me for? We'd get those calls. We get calls in foreign languages with some foreigner screaming at us in whatever moon language they were babbling. The shit was just, or you'd get the heavy breathing, or the dead silence with a giggle. I hated the giggler. You'd have dead silence. You'd be just about to hang up, and you'd hear a little girl giggle. Be like, "Yeah, I'm done with this phone call. We're done here." Phones would all ring at once. Or my favorite one would ring, and then another would ring. But the first one, it would go ring, 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 and you'd look at them and you'd be like, "Yeah, it's going to be one of those nights." But we weren't the only one that happened to. It happened on 144th. 144th had it terrible with their phones. 108th had the same problem. Only their office phones would ring. 54th had a problem with their barracks. The payphone would ring, and you'd answer the payphone, and there'd be nobody there. I mean, the whole thing was just a fucking shit fest. And then they closed the base, and everybody cheered. And they closed the base, and everybody clapped because fuck that place. Oh god. I mean, between the fucking St. Elmo's fire lights and the fucking weird lights in the fog and the shapes and the sounds, a year in, you either have an alcohol habit or a mental illness, or if you're lucky, both.
Oh man. So you had weird phenomena, people going nuts,
Yes.
weird animals, and cabin fever.
Yep. Oh, have you ever wondered how come these guys can take a taser when they're crazy?
Yeah.
It's because they're crazy. We had a dude lose his shit in the barracks. And I was good at fighting. I loved to fight at the time. And I mean, there was 4 of us on this dude, and he was winning. And he was completely fucking giggling, bloody nose, one pupil fucking blown, fighting and biting. He was beating our ass until I grabbed the fucking fire extinguisher and hit him like 3 times in the fucking head. And that just stunned us enough to get his arms behind his back. And he dislocated one of his shoulders getting free and bit me. He was a nut. Crazy people are insanely strong and completely immune to damage. I would rather fight 3 dudes in a bathroom than fight one crazy person. Oh, toward the end, I wasn't hitting with my fists. I was using brass knuckles. And this dude just tanked it. I'm able to bench press over 300 pounds, and he's tanking a full straight line drive to the face with brass knuckles.
How did this fight start?
He came out of his room screaming at the top of his lungs after his roommate came out yelling, he's trying to fucking kill me, and half the guy's face is fucking chewed. Said he woke up to his roommate leaning over him and went, "What?" He thought his roommate was going to kiss him. His roommate took a bite out of his face.
Oh.
And that was written up to chemical exposure. Fuck that. That guy was around the fucking bend.
Does that tie into? I mean, when we did this last week, you listed off a whole bunch of different things that people would talk about, and one you touched upon but really didn't explore is you'd said serial killers were a big thing, were a big subject of stories told during that time.
Oh man, everybody. Okay, gotta remember the '80s was there was the Hillside Strangler, there was the Spokane Slasher, there was fucking the dude killing chicks around Evergreen, there was the Green River Killer, there was, on and on and on. Everybody from any big city had a serial killer story. For me, it was the Spokane Slasher and the Green River Killer. Because this was back in the day when the Green River Highway had the signs that said, "Do not stop for anyone, including law enforcement. Drive X amount of miles." You didn't stop. Do not get out of the car. The tow truck would come up and it would pick you up and just drive you to the. And it had, it would the tow truck would be escorted by at least 2 cop cars, and that's if you got a flat. Usually, women drove it on the rim, and so we all talked about serial killers. There was rumors that there was one in Baumholder. Now I don't know if this one's true because I do know that there was another case like it like 20 years later, but there was some freak that was going into it's down in Fulda. He was going into women's barracks rooms and trying on their underwear and posing.
Well, I don't know,
Mm.
Ralt. That is just called a sexual preference these days. That's
I lost you.
that's
Oh, there.
absolutely normal. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't you know that? This is General Milley's army. This is the new army.
But it turned. I think they caught that guy, and he was like he was like a high-ranking officer. But I knew girls from Fulda because I'd go down there and drink at the Fulda Green Goose. It was a nice place, great to get a punch up. And I talked to these girls that were at that station at Fulda, and I had one of them that goes, "Hey, you want to know a secret about every girl in Fulda?" And I was like, "What?" She goes, "None of us wear panties." I was like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, none of us wear panties." I'm like, "Why not?" Because every girl on post, every female soldier on post has come in their room and found a pair of their panties on their bed with cum in them.
Oh,
Ugh.
Because somebody
ew.
goes in our room and puts on our panties. I was like, "You're fucking shitting me." So I started asking, I'm like, "Hey, where are you stationed?" "Oh, Fulda." "Hey, can you confirm this for me?" "What? Is it true that none of you guys wear panties?" She goes, "Fuck no." "Why not?" "Because somebody jerks off in your underwear, and who knows and they wear them. You can tell because they're all stretched out." I'm like, "So you got some weirdo going in your room and wearing your panties?" "Yes." "Okay." There's supposedly a killer up in Bremerhaven. And then there was one in Rhine Mine. Yeah, I mean, serial killers were a big topic because number one, it's fascinating, and number two, well, it's something to talk about at 3 in the morning. And yeah, we had ours, and yeah, there was one in Fort Hood. And the weird thing is these rarely make civilian papers. The military justice system is really closed because they don't allow reporters in the courtroom, and they don't allow a lot of the normal press shit. It seems like remember Nassan Hidal was that his name? The Fort Hood shooter. Remember how
Yeah.
something like that would normally
Yeah.
be all over the press and you'd know every detail about the case?
Mhm.
How much did anybody really find out? The military justice system is sealed, pretty much.
Well, that was also back in the day where, if a Muslim did something wrong, the press did not want to talk about it, and it
No.
had absolutely nothing to do with religion.
Yeah. But well, look at what's his name? Bradley Manning. Hardly anybody knew about that trial. Except for free Bradley Manning. No, fuck that guy. Uh you rarely hear about what goes on in military justice, so a lot of people don't know how many crimes are prosecuted. I mean, I got put on jury duty a couple times. Once I got put on trial for a serial rapist, and another time I'm not put on trial. I was on the jury. It wasn't me. No, I was on the jury. And another time I was on the jury for a guy who falsified paperwork. And another time I was on a jury for a guy who would steal stuff from the hospital labs and eat it.
Oh.
Oh, dear
Oh,
God.
Yeah,
God.
yeah. And the thing is, I once had a friend of mine, real smart guy. He was going to be a doctor, but he ran out of money, and so he joined the army because fuck it, why not? And he said a lot of it he thought was the pills they gave us and the chemical exposures. But then he once told me that if you took the population of the U.S. military, which at the time was massive, and you went by a population, if you adjust it for population, there was actually less crime in the military, with the exception of spousal abuse. And I found that hard to believe. And he's like, no, we're up in Vielflick, and we just see the worst of the worst up here. He's like, but you have to take out alcohol related incidents because, I knew a unit, they had 210 guys in the unit, and in 1 month had over 400 alcohol related incidents. Them are rookie numbers. You got to pump them up.
So what would an alcohol-related incident be? I mean, that's pretty broad.
Well, it depends on your CO and it depends on the MPs. An alcohol-related incident could be anything from somebody underage drinking in their barracks room, bothering nobody, or some guy wandering down the street drinking a beer, to two guys trying to murder each other with hatchets and they're drunk, to somebody got drunk and beat their wife half to death. Alcohol-related incident is just a catch-all. It's used to track the alcohol and drug problems in the military. Because it would be like, assault and battery, alcohol related. Wrecked a car, alcohol related. Got in a fight, alcohol related. They would always have, alcohol related and added on. But yeah, alcohol related incidents is if anybody had any blood alcohol level or had alcohol in their hand, it was an alcohol related incident. Because that's how they track the metrics. But yeah, I mean, fuck. Veal Flicking was a special kind of fucking hell. I mean, I still have fucking dreams about that place.
I don't see how you couldn't.
Top of the rock, baby. Oh fuck! I remember two dudes got in a fucking knife fight out behind the fucking NCO club like retards. And people were, and plus, I guess we were different back then because we just did retarded shit, and they didn't punish us, unless it got brought to the attention of command. You could go down to formation with your face all busted up and a bandage on your hand, but as long as you didn't make it part of the official record, they would look the other way. And you didn't want it on the official record because then you get in trouble. But yeah, I mean, strange lights. I knew MPs that swore up and down there was phantom vehicles out there, from World War II and shit. Oh fuck! Me and two buddies found a Jeep from a German Jeep from World War II that had wrecked coming off the corner and still had the skeletons in it.
Oh, wow.
Those poor bastards sat out there for like 45 years. It's kind of cool. Jeep's all rusted up and shit, and there's skeletons in it. My buddy looks at me and goes, "So, think they're listed as AWOL yet?"
You grab any souvenirs?
Oh, no, actually don't. We never grabbed any souvenirs off anything with dead bodies. But I used to have some souvenirs. And you're not supposed to because the German government got all fucking hinky. And they turned into a bunch of little girls about it. But I had a SS dagger, and I had some emblems, and I had see, everybody would say, "Oh, why did you have that?" I had a Nazi flag that the guys from 54th Engineers, when they built the motor pool, when they rebuilt the motor pool for the tanks for 168, they uncovered crates of shit, and a bunch of them were Nazi flags, and some of us stole them. It was really funny because they turned all the shit. The post commanders up there later going, "Well, you managed to steal over half of it. If you return it, there won't be any problems, but I'm going to send somebody through all the barracks looking for it." So we hid it in the drop ceilings. we hid it in the toolboxes. But I had an honest to God Nazi flag from World War II Germany, and nowadays people would throw fits, but I thought it was cool because it's an honest to God souvenir. But yeah, everybody had little souvenirs because there was just so much shit around. I mean, who would? They found what was it? Was it in Dormstadt? They were doing some work and they found fucking an underground bunker with like 5 or 6 planes in it. I mean,
intact.
Yeah,
German. Whoa.
Intact tools, fuel, everything. That was what they used to park the planes underground toward the end of the war. I mean, weird shit like that was everywhere. There was fortress up on the mountain in Vilfligen. There was fortresses. You could find old medieval fortresses. Go explore those.
So, what would you say was the most absolute worst thing while at Vielflicken?
The absolute worst thing?
Yeah, that was the thing that made you truly loathe the place.
That is really tough because there was a lot of shit. Besides being told, no, you can't PCS and go to a new duty station. What truly made me loathe the place was not the isolation. It wasn't the distance from any kind of civilization. It was the cold. It was the cold in the clouds, because the clouds were fog for us. Down on mainland, it was just clouds. For us, it was fog, but it was the cold. Starting about late August, early September, it started getting cold, and it didn't March or April, and I was always cold. I mean, and it got dark. I mean, it sounds weird, but I swear to God, time worked differently up there, because it seemed like it was always dark. I mean, it seemed like sunlight. It seemed like the sunlight only lasted like 2 hours. It felt like, and I've heard that that's pretty common when you're in an isolated place. I mean, we weren't as bad as this other. There was some clandestine unit out there that was like 5 miles out on the road. We weren't like Hawk Hill, which was 3 miles out. We were only like 2 miles from main post, but it was a fucking nightmare. And because there were secure areas outside of the main post secure area, additional secure areas out off the main post that were even more secure. Ugh. But no, what made me loathe it was just the cold. That, and I don't know. I mean, while I was there, it was embrace the horror, but and drink as much as I can. But what really made me loathe it was no, actually, I know what it was. It was this feeling you got after being there like a month, when it suddenly dawns on you that the rest of the army doesn't give a fuck. I mean, we hated other units, because we hated our sister units, because they talked about going to Spain, going to France, going to wherever on their little fucking battalion trips. We were never invited. And it really bred resentment, because, we're out there busting our ass, 12, 20-hour days, 7-day work weeks, and gone from, I went for 8 months without ever seeing my room. And I went 8 months living at a site, eating MREs, and living in a fucking shelter half for actually in the back of the truck, because I said, fuck that. For 8 months, it was knowing that the rest of the army, as far as they were concerned, we didn't exist. And it sounds cool. Oh, you're in one that, no, it's not cool, because nobody gives a fuck.
Essentially, you were disposed of.
Yeah, eventually they just disposed of us. And yeah, I mean, I hated that place because the nihilism soaked into everything. They accidentally released the Veal Flicking Commanders accidentally let it hit basically the bulletin boards, because every Monday they'd put shit up on the bulletin boards that you need to read. And if you're a squad leader like me, you'd get it in a packet. And I open up my packet and I see this fucking estimation from USERA Command in the Department of Defense. And it stated the life expectancy of the various units and what percentage would be out of action due to injury, and what percentage would be out killed in action, barring a direct nuclear hit to Veal Flicking, which we were slated for. And I found out that my life expectancy was 38 minutes.
Oh, jeez.
Jesus.
I would be dead before America knew we were at war. And if they were doing pre-planning attacks before it went up, my life expectancy was negative 19 hours. I would be killed 19 hours before the war started. That became a source of pride, because everybody was bragging about their times. And it's like, that's how nihilistic it got up there. So, when I tell ghost stories and you hear me go, I was like, man, fuck this, I'm going back to my room. It literally had a hard time affecting me, because I didn't care. I mean, I'm going to be dead. I'm going to die anyway. It doesn't matter if that big wolf eats me. It doesn't matter if whatever lives in the fucking vents comes out and cuts my throat with a fucking razor. That was a rumor. And I don't know if we had somebody killing people, or if it was coming out of the vents and killing people. But that was like, like 4 people showed up with their throats cut with a razor. But
Fuck.
that was weird, because it killed a guy and left his roommate alone. But he said that all fucking night that thing was tapping and moaning until he fucking got drunk enough to pass out. And he woke up and his fucking roommate's got his throat cut. It's like, fuck. And then, we look at the post blotter, and the post blotter has shit like, so-and-so was picked up for drunk and disorderly. I was like, yeah, but was he picked up for drunk and disorderly before or after he started shooting at the fucking started shooting at the fucking tank. Doesn't say. You know, you check the Dormstott one, and nothing in Vielflicken would be listed. We used to joke that you could set off an atomic bomb, and nobody would report on it because nobody fucking cared.
So it wasn't just isolation. It was they had completely abandoned you guys. They were kind of a dumping ground for people they didn't want.
Yeah, it felt like that at times. You know, sometimes we get really good guys. Mostly it was the newbies, but other times we get these fucking psychopaths. Yeah, we got this dude who got drunk one night and started bragging about how they would go into a village and grab a fucking girl and take turns raping her and then just fucking take her out in the bush and shoot her. About the fourth time he told that story, everybody was like looking at each other, and then 2 days later he mysteriously got ran over by a fucking 10 grand forklift, and somebody parked it on him, so nobody found his body for like 3 days. Totally accident.
Hey, nice.
The CO was like, well, he must not have been paying attention to the ground guide. CO didn't care either because the CO had heard the story from his mouth. And, you know, he just happened to die spontaneously. Oh, not to mention, the Troop Medical Clinic was a fucking hazard. I mean, we had a dude went in there for a fever and died. We had a guy who went in there with a headache and died. We had some dudes that went in there because they felt nauseous and died. And, you know, it was like, well, the place is fucking dangerous. But at the same time, these doctors are working with idiots that don't come in until, you know, the infection has got fucking black lines off of it.
Oh, God.
It was a wonderful place. It was a great place. And, yeah, it really felt like nobody cared. But you'd ask anybody, hey, you ever go to Vielflicken? They'd all go, man, fuck that place. I looked at the Wikipedia, and the Wikipedia page says the same thing. One of the most feared and hated posts in Europe. That place was a shithole. Oh, God. I mean...
All right. Well, we've been going for almost an hour and a half. So
wow.
First
Somebody
off,
else's turn.
If anyone else wants to jump in and tell a story just for the hell of it, I've got one. I don't know if it really qualifies as a Halloween story. It's a little bit creepy, you know, and then I'll tell a funny one. And the creepy one is most of my listeners are aware. 2 weeks after I graduated high school, I was basically I was in the back of a car. Some dipshit who was a sheriff deputy at San Bernardino County snapped. He had had a miserable week, decided he was going to take it out on someone, chose a car full of teenagers, chased us back to the neighborhood I lived in, ran us off the road, jumped out and started shooting. And I got shot in the back and nearly died. Now, that's going to be the short version because I'm not going to get too deep into that part. The creepy part of that story is for about maybe a year prior, where the shooting occurred was this kind of infamous turn or loop in the neighborhood I lived in. And the reason being is that it was kind of a blind turn and it was very awkward. And there were a lot of auto accidents there because of the way it was arranged. And it's kind of not surprising that when this guy chased us taking the turn was what gave him the opportunity to do a pit maneuver on us, jump out and start shooting. But the odd thing was, you know, high school student, played a lot of role-playing games, you know, just things that high school kids talk a lot about, guns and shit like that. And I remembered once I was driving home from my friend's house, and it was actually the house that I fled to make the call to 911 after I'd been shot. But I was driving back from his house to my home. We both lived in the same neighborhood, lived about maybe 5-10 minutes away. And one night, I remember I was taking that turn and it just like kind of seeped into my brain. And I wonder what it actually feels like to get shot. And it was just kind of a notion that occurred to me. And sort of that notion or that thought got imprinted on that area. And you know how sometimes you'll do an activity and what you were thinking about the last time you were doing that activity would pop into your brain? Yeah. I mean, that would occur. Often, if I would drive past that area, that memory would pop into my head and say, "Yeah, yeah, that. I wonder what it really is like to get shot." And about a year later, that was exactly the spot where I got shot, or the shooting went down. And it was just one of those things. Um, so just eerie. And I suppose the other story that I could tell is, I've talked plenty about my vivid dreams of gray aliens visiting me. And I'm not going to make this show at all about any of that stuff. But yeah, I had several lucid dreams in which I was visited by gray aliens in the dreams. And you can listen to another show to get those details. But when I was really plunging into the darkest depths no, this was more when I was spiraling into my post-traumatic stress. And, it's post-traumatic stress of nearly dying and getting shot. That's pretty normal. The second year in college, when I was starting to get really paranoid and started, the whole alien thing was a big deal back in the early 90s, or this was mid 90s. And so I kind of had that paranoia. And then I remember one night I was in my apartment and the whole apartment just starts rumbling. And it's kind of this low drone going, right? And like the window starts shaking, and you can hear the window panes shaking, and the bulbs and the lamps begin to shake, and it gets kind of louder and louder, and then this incredible light just shoots through the living room window and the bedroom window, right? And I'm like, what the fuck? I mean, it is blazing bright. I'm like, okay, it's happened. They're fucking here. So I roll over and I grab a tape recorder with me and a camera, and I creep out to the living room, to the big picture window out there to look outside as, this light's blazing and this rumbling noise. And I look out, and it's the utility company, and they've set up those halogen lights that they use to light up the freeway in our yard, and we're digging up the cement there to pull out the electrical wires. And the rumbling I was hearing was the diesel engine in idle.
Oh, jeez.
God.
I got one for you. I got one for you.
Okay.
It's not the Army. So I've been out for a while and I went crazy and we ended up on the coast. And I lived in this place where when the tide was low enough, you could see old shipwrecks out there. Interesting thing is the Pacific Northwest used to have pirates. You could find cannonballs and stuff on the coast. And so I was a bartender at a tourist bar. And it's like December. And it started getting foggy about noon that day. And by 6 o'clock, by the time I went to work, it was bad. And we're sitting there, and I've had like no customers, and that's weird because we had dollar beers, and it was 50-cent tap night, and nobody's coming in. So finally, guy comes in, Bobby. He's ex Special Forces. I knew him from back in the day, and he lives out there. It was kind of funny. I ran into him, and he comes in. He's like, "Damn, man, what is going on?" I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Whole town is covered in fucking fog." I was like, "Well, yeah, it's what happens with fog, man." He's like, "Man, fuck you." So another guy comes in, There's like 6 of us sitting in there drinking. And in Washington State, bartenders are not allowed to drink. And we're sitting there. And come about 11, I open the door and look out and I listen, and it is dead fucking silent. And the fog has this luminescent quality. Now, if you've never lived on the coast in a place where that kind of fog comes in, it actually does have a kind of eerie glow to it for some reason. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I go back in. I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about shutting down early. And so Bobby goes outside. He comes back in like 5 minutes. And he goes, yeah, fuck that shit. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, I don't know. I can make it home. I'm like, you haven't had that much to drink. He goes, no, that fog is bad. And so somebody starts banging on the fucking back door. I'm like, back door's closed. Come around. They keep banging on the back door. I'm like, I will get a shotgun. And they keep banging. I'm like, and Bobby's like, you gonna open that? I'm like, do I fucking look retarded? And then they start banging on the front door. I went and got the shotgun. I'm like, yeah, let him come in. I'll fucking fold him like fucking laundry. You know, fucking Bobby's got his fucking 45 out, and the other guy's got his. Everybody's got guns because, not supposed to carry guns in taverns, but it's that kind of place. And finally they quit, and I can't shut down until midnight. The only way I can shut down until midnight is if I made less than $200 on the till. And I fucking ran the till, and I had $198. I looked at it, and Bobby goes, "Hey, get me another beer." I'm like, "No." I'm like, "We're shutting down," and it was fucking creepy. And I told Bobby, "You know what? I walked to work. Would you mind give me a ride home?" And he's like, "No, no, no." So everybody's like, "Hey, why don't we all pile in Bobby's truck and he can take us all home?" Because everybody lives within like 5 blocks. And we get up by the store, and we can see the blue and red from the cop car. It's like, what the fuck? We pull into the store parking lot. We get out. The cops' car doors are open, trunks open, M16s are missing. There's no fucking power. We drive back to the bar. Bar's got power. Check the telephone, dead. Bobby's like, what the fuck? It's like, all right, let's get in your truck and let's go to my place. I got the guns. He's like, I got guns too, motherfucker. I'm like, yeah, but you're over a mile out. So we get back in the truck and we get on the main road, and there's another cop car, but it's it's blockading the road. He fucking slows down. We get out. Doors on the opposite side are open. Well, the doors facing out from town are closed. The doors on the side to town are open. Trunks open. Rifles are gone. What the fuck? So we go back. Check the payphone again. Nothing. I was like, look, man, my wife is home alone with the kids. I got to get home. Either you give me a ride home or I'm walking. And Bobby's like, my kids are home. Well, my wife's home. And nobody else is married. Bobby's like, I'll give you a ride home. And I'm like, no, 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 you live the other way. I'm gonna hoof it. He's like, well, I said, look, I live less than a mile. I can run 2 miles in 12 minutes, 30 seconds. If it's out there, it's not catching me. And he's like, are you sure? I'm like, I'm fucking sure. So, I fucking take off, man. I'm fucking booking it. And not a single fucking light is on. And I get home and I bang on the fucking side door. My wife fucking looks out the window. She's got the M3, and I open the door and go in. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? She goes, I don't know. Power's going in and out. There was gunshots. I don't know what's going on. I check the phone. Phone's dead. So the cops were responding. Later we find out the cops were responding to intruders. People claiming there was prowlers. A couple of people claimed there were intruders in their houses. But they couldn't find anything, and they got lost in the fog because the fog was so thick you couldn't see the lights farther than about 50 paces. And they got lost, and they ended up holding up in civilian houses for the rest of the night. The fog didn't lift until right after dawn. The next day I go to work, and the bar is packed, and all everybody's talking about is how there was somebody out there in the fog. There was somebody out there. There was somebody out there. And people went to people grabbed their kids and went to the neighbor's house. And that's all anybody talked about was that there was something out there in the fog. Some people who didn't experience it were like, oh, you think I'm gonna fall for that old movie? And everybody's like, no, I'm serious. There was something out there. But never did get an answer. And that was like 4 days later. Me and my friends were driving down the beach because you could drive on the beach. And we had the headlights off so the cops wouldn't see us. And we hit a beached whale.
Oh no.
Gross. God,
What are the-
did it explode?
No. But what's funny is my buddy gets out. Bobby gets out. He's like, what are the chances of hitting a fucking whale? He's like, I didn't even see the fucking thing. I get home. My wife's like, why are you late? I was like, we hit a whale. And she looks at me and goes, do you think I'm fucking stupid? Bobby's wife calls her, goes, so the boys hit a whale with the truck. She looks at me and she goes, I married a living cartoon. Oh man, that was some fucked up shit. That fucking night with the fog, though, that was fucking eerie. Because I mean, nothing. I don't care how grounded you are and how fucking unshakable you think you are. But when you pull into the parking lot of a store and it is dead silent and the power's out, and the cop car is sitting there with the lights on, and the doors are open and all the guns are gone, you get that feeling. I mean, that's not really a ghost story. I guess it's a ghost story. because there was somebody out there. There was somebody out there
Alright.
fucking with people that night.
I see that as a ghost story.
Yeah.
It's spooky. It doesn't matter. It fits. It could have been Jason Voorhees for all we know.
Yeah, I mean, I remember sitting in Mario. Bobby's a bad motherfucker. I mean, Bobby was a bad motherfucker. I mean, he was there when he was visiting the barracks in Beirut when the bombing went off, and we all told him he was full of shit. Till we found out he got he showed us his award letter. He got an award for pulling Marines out of the rubble.
Oh, wow.
He did it with a broken arm too.
Oh,
So
damn.
this dude was a legit badass, and he's sitting in the bar with me. He's like, I ain't going out there. You go out there. I'm like, I ain't going out there. What are you, chicken shit? He goes, yeah, you go out there. And the other four guys are like, well, you guys are Army. You guys go out there. I ain't going out there. That was just eerie. But it's different when it happens in real life. I mean, you see it on the movies, and the fog isn't really that thick. But this is Pacific Ocean pea soup. So, it was, you couldn't make out the car at 10 paces. You could see the lights, but you couldn't make it out. That was fucking weird. And, naturally it's going through your head. The fog, the mist, all that shit's going through your head with, I'm going to die in this parking lot and nobody's going to know. Anybody else got a good one?
Yeah, does anyone else?
Uh,
No, I last Halloween I told all my good ones. I mean, the only good one I have that I could repeat was the one where the real experience with the Ouija board that fucked us all up for like 2 weeks afterwards.
Let's hear it.
Let's hear it, baby.
So, my brother, well, when I say my brother from another mother, I've known him since first grade. So he's like, I've known him like a brother, was having his birthday party. And it's, this is in February. So, it still gets dark early. So we're like, let's fuck around and play with a Ouija board. And, a couple of us were like, we shouldn't do this, but we did it anyway. Cause we were 15, 16 years old and we didn't want to look like, bitch made.
Yeah.
So yeah. So we did it anyway. And all of a sudden the basement got really cold. And the girl that was talking to the Ouija board and having us talk, all of a sudden I started crying uncontrollably. Like I've never felt fear like that before. And it's like you could feel it in the room. And then my friend next to me faints at the same time, just collapses. And then another friend was like, do you guys see the Roman centurion in the corner? He's got a sword. He's going to fucking kill us. And we shut that shit down quick. We got our friend up. We kind of were like, yo, are you okay? He's like, I don't know what happened. And we bailed out of that basement. And I'll tell you, after that happened, when we went down into that basement, it was creepy as fuck. The only 2 times that going to that basement did not bother me was the first time I did mushrooms, because I didn't give a fuck if it was haunted. I was too busy trying to figure out what they did with amputated body parts. Because, when you're on mushrooms, you think about weird shit. The second time was the first time I saw it behind the green door. And I was too weirded out by the psychedelic cum shots in that movie.
Yeah.
Those things distracted me. But I'm not joking, guys. I felt, like I said, I started sobbing. I was freaking out. The room was cold. I felt evil in the room. I was scared out of my mind. And then to have my friend just fall over and faint right next to me, and then have my other friend say, there's a Roman centurion that's going to kill us in the corner of the room. That was the last time I played with the Ouija board. I will not go near them. If I see them, I want to fucking burn them.
I've never played with one. I have never played with one. Okay. I got one. It's Halloween. We got to tell this one. I've already told this one before on the channel. Some of you might remember it. Okay, and let's set the stage a little bit. It's the 1970s. I'm a little kid. My older sister, who loves me dearly, she's a teenager. And there's a yard sale. And how many of you remember the digital clocks that weren't actually digital? They just had
yes.
the numbers on it, and they would slowly roll, and the number would drop down. It was analog. Yeah, remember those?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so she bought one, right? She buys this thing. I wanted to buy it, but she bought it because she wouldn't. I don't remember why I couldn't buy it, because I wasn't that old. And she's all lording it over everybody. She's got this clock, and it worked. I remember how happy she was because my dad was like, "That shit ain't gonna work," and it worked. She bought it for like 50 cents or some shit. So I'm in bed, and me and my older brother, we're fucking around because it's summertime, and my sister comes screaming out of her room. We jump up out of bed because, hey, Sissy's screaming. It should be something cool. My other two older brothers are, come staggering out, come running out of their room. And my sister is losing her fucking mind, right? And my dad is like, calm the fuck down. What's going on? Because always, what's going on? What's wrong, sis? And my sister goes, I bought that digital clock, right? My dad's like, yeah, what about it? It's talking to me. And Dad goes, so fucking what? It's the modern era. There's all kinds of shit that talks to you nowadays. And she's like, no, Dad, it said my name. My dad's like, no, it fucking didn't. Go back to bed. My brother nudges me on our way out, and he goes, look, it's 12:03. Okay. My brother's a couple years older than me. And we go back to bed. The next night, my sister wakes us all up screaming, and she runs in, and she's in the front room underneath the fucking comforter on the couch. And, my older brother was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? He's the older one. He's only like 2-3 years younger than her. And she's like, the clock said my name. And brother's like, oh, bullshit. And comes goes back to her room, comes back out. He's like, clock's just sitting there. My sister's like, no, it said my name. It told me to look at it. It wanted me to look at it. My dad's like, will you quit your whining bullshit and go to bed? Next night, my sister loses her shit again. Absolute screaming meltdown in the kitchen. It talked to me. It said my name. It kept telling me to look at it. My dad's like, you know what? It's a bunch of bullshit. Goes and gets the clock. Comes up to me, my brother, hands me the clock. Goes, here, boy. Got a digital clock. You wanted it. It's yours now. My sister's like, yeah, give it to him. My older brother goes, fuck. Well, I'm all happy because I got the digital clock and I'm stupid because kids are fucking dumb. I plugged that shit in. Next night, I hear Ralts. I wake up. I hear Ralts. And my older brother from on top of the bunk bed goes, it's saying our names. And I hear, hey, look at me. I remember going, no. Look at me, Ralts. Fuck this, jump up, fucking run into the front room. I'm not screaming because my dad will kick, my mom will kick the shit out of me for screaming. So me and my brother grab our blankets, run out of the room, and sleep underneath the kitchen table. My dad wakes me up kicking me. He's like, the fuck you doing sleeping on the kitchen table? He's not kicking me hard. He's giving me, the parent kick. He's like, what are you sleeping on the table, boys? The clock was stay on our name. My dad's like, I'm tired of this bullshit. Takes the clock again, tells my wife. Tells my mom, his wife, plug it in. My mom's like, okay, plugs in. My dad's like, this is a bunch of bullshit. All of you are just being fucking weirdos. I'm sick of this fucking games. Next night, I hear, what the fuck? My dad bursts out of the fucking bedroom. I hear my mom, it said our name. It said our name. I'm a little kid, so they've got, mom, dad, that's their names. My dad next day, he gets the big barbecue tongs and he picks the fucking clock up and destroys it. Well, actually, it's a little more than that. He throws it away. Right? Throws it in the garbage. That night, my sister comes running in screaming. Same fucking thing. So my dad ended up destroying that fucking clock. Now, years go by. And we're talking 30, 40 years go by. And my daughter buys a fucking alarm clock. She's like, I bought an alarm clock at a yard sale. I'm like, oh, good for you, sweetie. And me and my wife are sitting up, watching TV, smoking cigarettes. And my daughter comes screaming. All three daughters come screaming out of the bedroom. The clock said her name. I looked at my wife. I looked down the hallway. I went, I'm going to take care of this shit. Look at the clock. Same exact fucking model.
Oh,
I burned that fucker. I stood there, watched it burn. I have never had anybody explain that shit to me. It wasn't just me that heard it. It wasn't just my sister. It was me, my sister, my brother, my dad, my mom. We all heard that shit. My dad did not allow digital clocks in the house until like the late 80s. Because fuck that clock.
So, Kat.
Yeah?
In all of your reading about hauntings and spiritualism and all that, What did you come across in terms of phantom voices coming out of electronics like radios?
Well, to be honest, most of my reading was more turn of the century. So I didn't as far as heavy research goes, I really am not too familiar with things coming out of electronic devices, except for what I used to watch on sightings.
My
So,
my dad said
but
because it was a clock radio that my brothers had tuned it so they could fuck with her with a CB.
I can see that. I can totally see that. But I am going to share one. I touched upon this a bit on, I think it was a Yang's show, but I grew up in a haunted house. My house was built in the 1920s in Los Angeles. It was old enough that uh, we had a built-in ice box with a door leading to the outside so that the ice truck could come and deliver ice. That's how old my house was. Um, so that house was around for like ever. Um, and the thing is, as long as I could remember, I was scared to death of my closet. I mean, like if the lights were off and it was dark and I knew the closet door was open, or even like I could sense the closet door was open, I would not enter the room. In fact, I'd ask my mom to turn on the light for me because I'd be that scared to reach in and turn the light on. If the closet door was open, I was so freaking scared of the closet. Um, but other than that, as a kid, things were pretty good, but the longer I was in the house, the longer we lived there, weird shit started happening. I'd get woken up in the middle of the night to the sounds of footsteps in the dining room. Now, the house used to have god awful avocado shag carpeting from the 70s, but my mom ripped that shit up to expose the beautiful hardwood floor that had been there, since the house was built. But as soon as she did that, that's when where I would start hearing footsteps pacing back and forth in the dining room. And I'd go in there because, well, I lived in Inglewood, California, and our house had been broken into 4 times, once while we were still in the house. So I wanted to make sure we hadn't been burglarized and there'd be nobody there. In fact, I'd turn the corner and I wouldn't even turn the lights on. It was just turn the corner and the sound would stop. And that started happening like at least once, twice a week, to the point where I just started ignoring it. Um, but about the time I started hearing the footsteps, more weird things would happen where like the temperature in my room started dropping. I mean, like noticeably. Where one of the times we had a burglary, uh, the cops were checking out the house and they came out saying how odd it was that my bedroom was about 20 degrees colder than the rest of the house. Um, to the point where there was one summer where it was, 90 degrees, approaching 100 degrees outside, and you could see your breath in my bedroom at noon. That's how weird it was. And then my mom wanted us to move, which was great. I wanted to get the hell out of there. And we couldn't sell the house for the life of us. And the feeling in the house was getting really, kind of angry, and I just figured it was, the anticipation of we'd been there for, we'd had the house on the market for over a year and we weren't moving, and mom was getting stressed over other things, but no, the house itself was getting kind of, angry, and my mom brought in a psychic, and the psychic said flat out, no, the house doesn't want you to move. And not only that, just like in Poltergeist, the nexus point was in my fucking closet. So that was where it all culminated, where all the bad shit was in my fucking closet. And my mom sent me out of the house. I had visitation with my dad one weekend because my parents were divorced. And one weekend that I wasn't there, she and the psychic smudged the whole house, did this whole ritual, this whole cleansing thing. I came back, I didn't notice anything different other than the smell of sage, but the house sold within a month.
Oh wow.
So, so I don't know. And ever since then, I've been perfectly fine with closets. I lights can be off. I don't care if the door's open, whatever. Never had a problem again. So.
Hey, has anybody else ever had this happen to them? I don't know if it was like, maybe isolation or maybe brain damage, but has anybody ever like caught your reflection slightly off?
Yes,
Yeah.
actually, it was in
Yeah,
that house.
I hate that.
Okay.
I fucking hate that. Because then you look at your reflection for like the next year, like, I know. Yeah,
Like,
I caught mine just slightly off one time.
it's like, yeah, I'm watching you.
And it's nothing major. It's not like it reaches up and pets its hair when you're standing there. No, it's like it blinks wrong or it
Hmm.
blinks after you do. It's like, wait, that's not right.
The delayed movement of the head.
Yeah. And I hate mirrors. I hate full body mirrors because of that shit.
Ooh, no, no.
Yeah. That's... So, hey, anybody else got any good?
The
Uh,
problem with
uh,
most of my stories, I mean, I've seen a lot of ghosts and shit, but it's always, well, I saw this.
uh,
There's no narrative to it.
Yeah.
I've got one after what you were gonna share.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Look this up. There's an episode of Sightings. It was one of the last season episodes, I believe. I'm trying to remember what they called it, but the episode was of this woman. Her name was Barbara, and I think she lived in Maryland. And the story was that she was the reincarnation of a woman who had lived in the house that she owned, and she saw a residual haunting of herself. That woman, Barbara, was the best friend of my stepmother at the time. And so my stepmother got to see a lot of the footage that sightings didn't show because it was too freaking weird. One of the things that they did show was one of the infrared cameras where there was a random cold spot that would emanate in an area. What they didn't show was when they got one of those cold spots that full on materialized into a humanoid form. Like, where you could actually see like a vague nose, vague hair, arms, shit like that. But they're like, people are gonna think this is fake. We can't use this footage. So they didn't put it on the show. Other things where they would have cameras set up around the house showing things moving. Now this is, before we had things like ghost hunters and all that other all reality TV stuff. And same thing, the cameras would show items moving that seemed to be floating in the air. And later it turned out what it was an item that the woman who had died would carry with her, and she was traveling on where the staircase used to be. The staircase had been straight up before, but they rebuilt it so that it spiraled, but she still traveled the old staircase route. And some of the items from the house that were there when she was there would travel that path sometimes. They didn't put that on the show because they thought nobody would believe it.
Did anybody ever notice that in the 90s and the early 2000s they demolished all the old haunted places?
Yeah.
Because remember how I mentioned there was something missing? Somebody
Hmm.
DM'd me on Twitter and said that if you look at the old haunted asylums and the old haunted factories, they all got demolished in the late 90s, early 2000s.
That's
I mean,
interesting.
I was like, huh, that explains a lot. And that's why a lot of these old farmhouses and shit got bulldozed. And it's like, huh. Weird. It's like they knew, it's like, did somebody know something, or was it just time catching up with these old abandoned structures? Because they always show in Hollywood when you go explore an abandoned asylum that it's full of old fucking medical equipment. I've explored an
Hmm.
abandoned asylum. You know what's in there? Jack and shit.
Yeah.
There's nothing. There's no fucking file cabinets with records hanging out of it because people like me would have sat there and read them. There's no fucking medical equipment. There's no chairs. It's just empty. I mean, there's nothing there. But then you go on YouTube and you see these guys that do urban exploration, and the place is like full of equipment, and I'm like, how is it full of equipment? They never leave anything behind when they strip these places. But then you look and you see, oh, it's Europe.
I mean, like, yeah, Europe. I know that there's a place in Japan that it was an abandoned hospital, and it was one of those things where they didn't abandon it for any big reasons. They just built a new state-of-the-art facility and, moved the people, but they left everything else there in the hospital. I mean, they just picked up and left. So you have cabinets filled with sheets. In fact, the laundry still had, laundry in it. There are trays with equipment still there, and because it's Japan, nobody takes anything. You can go there and you can walk around. They don't want you to. It is technically trespassing, but because Japan is an honor-based society, nobody takes souvenirs. They just go and walk around and see this like hospital that's just lost to time. And it's
Now,
supposed to be haunted too.
now, there is an exception, and that's government facilities. Government facilities will be full of all kinds of crap. I mean, but yeah, it's weird. Gotta love the old ghost stories where they move along the old patterns. And
Hmm.
you ever notice that the ghost hunter people never really go to any place with really bad reps?
No, no, they don't.
Yeah, the ghost hunter
Yeah.
stuff is all extremely fake.
Because I was always like, well, if you guys are so badass, why don't you go up to Red Hill Mine out by Chehalis? That place is fucking haunted.
Mm.
That place will kill you. I mean, if the sheriff department catches you anywhere near Red Hill Mine, you're fucking. And if they haven't blown it up by now, I mean, they would literally catch you on the road heading up there because it was an old logging road. They'd come bailing up behind you with a cruiser because you weren't allowed to be up there.
Tell me about it. I don't know anything about this.
Basically, they walked away from the mine. Chehalis legend had all kinds of reasons. Chehalis is a shithole. Okay, when Izzy Stevens on Grey's Anatomy said she lived in Chehalis,
Mhm.
there's no way anybody that pretty got out of Chehalis. Okay, I mean, when she said she was from a trailer park in Chehalis, no, I've lived in that one and it's terrible. Uh, but there was Red Hill Mine up there, and you either knew about it or you didn't. And legend has it everybody walked away from it for no reason. Although your older brother would tell you, oh, there's a killer up there, and your uncle would be like, nah, there was just a gas explosion. Me and my buddies hiked up there once, and fuck, I almost got killed. We were going through the old buildings and shit, and the fucking wall collapsed and damn near got me and a buddy. And I told my dad about it, and he fucking gets up off the couch and he fucking slaps me clean out of the chair and he goes, "You're not supposed to go up there, you little dumbass." I'm like, well, the wall just fell down. He's like, you got fucking lucky. Did you stay? I was like, no, we left. Did you go in the mine? No, he goes, because if you went in the mine, I'd make you leave. Okay, because my dad wasn't afraid of shit. And that's all we knew about it. But we went up there and it was fucking creepy. I mean, there was still machinery and shit. And then we broke into the old Chehalis asylum. That place didn't have dick. There wasn't anything cool but graffiti, and there was a room with 2 mattresses and a bunch of fucking underwear and bras and shirts.
Mm.
That's not special. That's not creepy. That's just your older brother and his friends going in there and being dickheads. Actually, that's where he took the weird girl to fuck. I mean, but then you'd find the old government spot, and that would be weird. There'd be like vehicles and fucking machinery you didn't know what it did, and rusted buildings that you could bust the door open, and it would be full of like desks and lamps and shit. Like they just gotten them and left one day. So maybe it's the difference between private enterprise and the government.
It's just the government up and leaves, just
Mm-hmm.
leaves it all there.
Because it's
Kind
cheaper.
of like Afghanistan and military equipment.
Yeah. Oh man. Nobody believed me. I told them when I was during the '90s, I helped I helped with the decommissioning of a lot of places, and one of them we found a fucking locker of smallpox. Nobody would believe me. Oh, they wouldn't keep that. They still find smallpox to this day in refrigerators on isolated bullshit posts in the middle of nowhere.
I believe
Oh,
it.
jeez.
I mean, fucking look it up. I think one was like 5 years ago. They found a full fucking vial with the sign-in sheet. Somebody put it in the back of the refrigerator and left it.
Jeez.
Just sitting there. Just sitting there, live smallpox. It's like, people are fucking dumb.
Oh,
But yeah, ghost
God.
stories are good. I mean,
Mhm.
and they used to be so it'd keep us from fucking going exploring dumb places and getting killed, and to keep you from going out. And people today have no goddamn common sense. I mean, yeah, we were retards and explored shit like that, but I mean,
You
some
kind of
people,
got
it's
what you
like,
deserved, right?
yeah, somebody always got what they deserved. But nowadays you could tell these kids there's a literal axe murderer in that fucking abandoned building, and they will go in there to do TikTok dances and then wonder why they're dead.
I wish you were kidding.
Huh. I'm not. I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
You
No,
Well,
could
wasn't
tell
no.
that
them.
what Goatsy was back in like the late 90s, early
Oh,
2000s?
goat see.
Yeah, like
Uh,
there's the actual like serial killer hiding in an asylum and was killing people.
no. Goatsy was
No.
Oh, you're
a
thinking
guy
Cropsey.
thinking
Oh,
what?
okay, yeah. There was one of them where they said like something lived in an asylum was killing people, and an actual serial killer moved into that asylum later and was killing people.
Goatsy was he had on a wedding ring. Why? Um, I mean, I know why ghosts aren't around anymore because they don't want to be on some lame TikTok. Fuck. Can you imagine being in the afterlife? You're used to haunting people, scaring the shit out of them. And now all of a sudden you have these retarded fucking teenagers coming and doing these ridiculous fucking dances. I'd be like, I ain't showing up. Fuck you. Fuck you and your TikTok channel.
Well, I think part of it also, and I don't mean to get on a soapbox here, but ghosts usually stuck around because, well, there's supposed to be some business left undone. Either they're angry and they're pissed off, or they've decided that they're going to be, looking after a place or something like that. But, usually they have a purpose to what they're doing that doesn't exist anymore. If you look at a lot of these ghost hunter shows and stuff like that, the ghosts just, they're there to do parlor tricks for the camera and our amusement. So yeah, of course, TikTokers will think we'll go in there and we'll do dances and shit because it doesn't mean anything. It's not, there's no purpose to it. Where, before, the whole point of, hauntings, real or imagined, was the entity has a purpose. I mean, look at the Fox sisters, the ones who originated the spiritualist movement in the 1840s. They fabricated this ghost who, through knocking, was supposed to be a soldier that had been shot and was wounded and had died. No, I'm sorry. No, no. He was a soldier, but he was he turned into a panhandler because, well, soldier, and he was murdered in their house and buried in the basement, and that's why he was still around, was because he had unfinished business, and which turned into them touring the world, having this ghost answer stupid questions. But you had narratives, you had stories, and you had purpose. You don't have that anymore.
Well, I think part of it is that a lot of these stories now, they've removed the narrative element. It's the whole TikTok, what is it, 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's like Slender Man, where it's like, well, it exists to kill.
Slender Man started. It was a photo manipulation contest on Something Awful. Everybody says it's Marble Hornets. No, it was not. And it was a thread on Something Awful. And it was a really cool Photoshop, and everybody else started doing Photoshops of him. And then they did creepy pastas of him, and then Marble Hornets picked it up. And it was just some bullshit it was doing because they were bored one weekend.
Well, actually, what's interesting about the Slender Man case is it's a great example of conflation, in which usually when conflation where somebody hears a story and the story starts to take on a life of its own, and it like jumps from being a myth to like an urban legend to something people actually believe in. And I mean, that's happened so many times. But what's curious is Slender Man is one of the few where we know the exact origin, date and time and author of where it came from.
Yeah.
Which is just, usually you don't have that. I mean, I guess the only other one that really has a kind of a known start point would be, I think, the Slitmouth Woman in Japan. And you ever hear that?
No,
Mhm.
no.
No.
That
Yeah,
was
I'm
an
familiar.
actual phenomena. I think it was in the 60s. And there was a story that was told on the radio of a woman who was stalking the streets with a surgical mask on her face, and she'd come up to young girls and pull her mask down and say, "Do you think I'm beautiful?" And
I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah.
and if you didn't answer in a way she liked, she would slice your neck.
She,
And
oh, I'm sorry.
yeah,
I was going to say she came back during the pandemic.
and that one story took on a life of its own until people were absolutely convinced that Slipmouth Woman was real. There were sightings, photos, incidents, and it was again. Well, it started as fiction, and somehow the fiction kind of invaded reality.
Yeah, she cropped back up again during the pandemic. Well, because everybody's wearing masks, or the surgical masks. But I don't know if this is from the original telling or if the mutation of it. But it's that there's no right answer to give her. If she asks, do you think I'm pretty, and you say yes, she'll then take the mask off so you can see her face, and then she'll ask you again. And if you say yes, then she gives you the same grin. If you say no, she slits your throat. Basically, anytime you say no, she slits your throat. You have to ask her a question to throw her off, and that's how you get away.
Huh. I never heard that.
Hey guys, I'm
yeah,
falling
Yeah.
asleep.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I have to get up at 6:30.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I was enjoying, but I started dozing, and I'm like, this is being really disrespectful. So I'm gonna bail. You guys can
Okay.
keep
No,
going.
no. We should call it a night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fucking 1:45, and I need a nap.
Oh, geez.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this as much as we did. And buy our books.
Okay, bye, bug.